The skin, the body's largest organ and its most public frontier, has long been a battleground for the female self. For millennia, it has been subjected to a relentless regime of cultural expectation. It must be smooth, flawless, modest, and often, malleable, conforming to a perpetually shifting ideal of feminine beauty dictated by patriarchal forces, commercial interests, and social norms. In this context, the decision by a woman to permanently alter her body with a tattoo is not merely an aesthetic choice, it is a profound, indelible act of self-authorship, a declaration of sovereignty over a territory long considered public domain. The woman with a tattoo is a walking, breathing text, her body transformed from an object of passive observation into a vibrant, intentional canvas of her own making. The psychology that drives this transformation is a rich, often contradictory tapestry woven from threads of autonomy, trauma, identity, rebellion, and self-esteem. It asks, when a woman inks her skin, is she decorating a body she already loves, or is she aggressively reclaiming one she felt she had lost? And what does this permanent, visible choice reveal about the invisible architecture of her mind? The rise of the tattooed woman from cultural anomaly to mainstream norm is one of the most significant shifts in contemporary gender expression. No longer confined to the fringes of subculture, female body modification is now a ubiquitous phenomenon. Yet, for women, the psychological landscape of tattooing remains uniquely complex. While a man's tattoo may be viewed as a mark of rugged individualism, a woman's often triggers a more loaded societal judgment, touching upon archaic stereotypes of morality, promiscuity, and unnatural femininity. This tension, between the profound personal meaning of the ink and the external stigma it can provoke, forms the core psychological dynamic of the female tattoo experience. This extended exploration will move beyond simple motivations to delve into the intricate psychological functions of body art, its role in narrative identity construction, its power to heal and reclaim a traumatized body, its correlation with traits like sensation-seeking and extroversion, and the complex interplay between body image, self-esteem, and the inked skin. The tattoo, in this context, is a psychological lens, offering a permanent insight into the ephemeral process of a woman defining herself in a world that is always trying to define her. 1. The historical and sociological context of the inked woman. Historical stigma versus cultural tradition, e.g., Polynesian, Native American, or early 20th century sideshows. The late 20th century shift, from deviance to fashion. The gendered double standard, why a man's tattoo is masculine and a woman's is sexualized or rebellious. 2. The tattoo in narrative identity theory, McAdams model. Theories of narrative identity, particularly those developed by psychologist Dan McAdams, posit that an individual's identity is constructed through a life story, an internalized, evolving, and coherent narrative of the self. For women, who often grapple with socially imposed expectations regarding their appearance and life trajectory, tattoos function as permanent, nonverbal excerpts of this personal life story. The mark as a myth, how tattoos function as personal myths or life stories etched into the skin. A woman's tattoo often serves as a condensed personal myth or an identity schema. It is a visual representation of a significant life event, a core value, or an enduring struggle that defines her. These myths are not mere decoration, they are enduring psychological anchors. Unlike oral narratives that require retelling, the tattooed myth is always present, subtly or overtly influencing daily self-perception and social interaction. For the wearer, the ink provides a tangible, unchangeable truth about who she has been and who she intends to be. The decision of what to ink is a profound act of editing the self, selecting which parts of her history deserve to be canonized on her physical form. This externalized narrative acts as a self-confirmation mechanism, reinforcing the belief in her own story every time she sees her reflection or glances at the mark. Symbolic meaning and self-definition, tattoos as permanent signifiers of transient life phases. A central paradox of tattooing is the use of a permanent medium to mark a transient experience. While life phases are by nature temporary, adolescence, motherhood, recovery from illness, a particular relationship, the tattoo captures the meaning of that phase, making its psychological impact enduring. The ink is a crystallization of meaning, it is the emotional or philosophical residue of an event. For a woman, whose identity is often expected to be fluid and relational, e.g., defined by her roles as daughter, wife, or mother, the tattoo offers a fixed point of self-definition. It declares, "This is what mattered to me then, and because it is inked, it matters forever." This process moves the experience from memory, which is malleable and subjective, to a fixed, objective statement on the skin, a deliberate act of self-objectification not in the negative, external sense, but in the positive sense of creating a definitive personal object. Examples: commemorating milestones, family, or personal philosophies. The functional psychology of commemorative tattoos can be categorized. Milestone tattoos, triumphs/trials, markings of survival, academic achievement, or overcoming addiction. Psychologically, these function as triumph badges, turning a personal struggle into a visible sign of resilience and competence. Family tattoos, communion portraits, dates, or symbols of children, parents, or siblings. These fulfill the psychological need for communion, visually integrating the self with key relational figures and making the bond tangible and omnipresent. The ink acts as a permanent, externalized attachment bond. Personal philosophy tattoos, agency quotes, mantras, or abstract symbols of belief, e.g., Stoicism, peace. These represent the internal master narrative of the individual. By inking a personal philosophy, the woman attempts to anchor her behavior to her belief system, creating a constant, visible reminder of her desired self-state and promoting self-regulation. Coherence and stability of self, how permanent ink can help solidify a fragmented or evolving sense of self. Psychologically, the self is a multifaceted and often disjointed collection of roles and experiences. For women who experience significant life shifts, trauma, or identity crises, the self can feel fragmented. Tattoos act as binding agents for the life story. By placing a series of intentional, meaningful marks on the body, the woman creates a coherent self-collage. The collection of tattoos, even if disparate in design, collectively tells a story of an individual who has chosen and survived. This process creates a sense of ontological security, a stable sense of, "I am me," by making her internal biography external and concrete. The permanence of the ink signals to the unconscious mind that the self is not fleeting, providing stability amidst life's inherent instability. Identity negotiation, using tattoos to signal affiliation, in-group, or distinction, out-group. Tattoos are critical tools in social identity theory and identity negotiation. Affiliation, in-group tattoos signal membership in a subculture, e.g., goth, alternative lifestyle, specific art community, or a shared social experience, e.g., matching tattoos with a friend or partner. This fulfills the basic human need for belonging and social support, reducing the psychological stress of feeling alone or marginal in one's identity. Distinction, out-group. More commonly for women in mainstream society, the tattoo is a symbol of distinction. It asserts individuality against the pressures of societal conformity, particularly the expectation of the blank slate female body. This is a subtle yet powerful act of nonconformity that generates interest and invites conversation, allowing the woman to control the narrative by inviting others to ask about her story, rather than projecting their assumptions onto her. 3. Motivation and psychological typology of the tattooed woman. The motivations behind a woman's decision to get tattooed are rarely singular, they are layered and often rooted in deeper psychological needs. This chapter moves from broad categories to specific personality correlates and advanced typologies. Review of major motives: expression, aesthetics, individuality, memory, trauma/recovery. Psychological research consistently identifies core motivations. Self-expression, the need to visibly externalize an internal state, belief, or emotion that words cannot fully capture. Aesthetics, a genuine appreciation of the art form, seeing the body as a three-dimensional canvas, driven by a desire for bodily ornamentation and enhancement. Individuality, the desire to differentiate oneself from the crowd and assert uniqueness, directly challenging the homogenizing forces of mass culture. Memory, the need for a permanent, accessible memorial to a person, pet, or time in life, often functioning as a grief mechanism or a nostalgia cue. Trauma/recovery, the psychological motivation to cover scars, reclaim the body from abuse, or mark the end of a destructive phase, which is deeply tied to the concepts of agency and self-healing. Personality correlates, analysis of studies linking tattoos to the Big Five personality traits. Empirical studies utilizing the Big Five model, Ocean, have identified statistically significant correlations for tattooed individuals, particularly women. Openness to experience, O highest correlation. Tattooed women consistently score higher on O, indicating a disposition for intellectual curiosity, unconventional thinking, creativity, and a preference for novelty and variety. The tattoo is an expression of this internal landscape. Extroversion, E significant positive correlation. Tattoos function as social stimuli, making the wearer more noticeable and approachable, thus satisfying the extrovert need for social engagement and excitement. Neuroticism, N findings are mixed and complex. Some studies, particularly older ones, link tattoos to higher N and related maladaptive traits, e.g., impulsivity or anxiety, while newer research often finds no significant difference or suggests that the act of tattooing itself might be a neurotic coping mechanism that ultimately reduces anxiety. See Chapter 5 on the ritual of pain. Sensation-seeking, SS closely related to openness and extroversion, SS is consistently correlated. The pain and permanence of the tattoo, coupled with the potential social risk, provide a sensory and psychological thrill for those with high SS scores. The role of rebelliousness versus authenticity, distinguishing between defiance against norms and commitment to self-expression. While historical research often reduced tattooing to a simple act of rebelliousness or deviance, modern psychology views it more as an act of authenticity. Rebelliousness, the negative drive a reaction against an external force, parents, society, workplace rules. This is a less mature, often reactive motivation. Authenticity, the positive drive a commitment to an internal truth, self-concept, values, aesthetic. This is a more mature, proactive motivation. For many modern women, the choice is not to simply break rules but to live in congruence with their internal self. The act of getting a tattoo, in the face of persistent, though weakening, social disapproval, becomes a powerful declaration of psychological integrity, affirming that her internal sense of self takes precedence over external judgment. The concept of the body collector, the psychology of heavily tattooed women, an addictive, aesthetic, or identity completion process. Heavily tattooed women, often termed body collectors, represent a distinct psychological subgroup. Their motivation goes beyond a single, commemorative piece. The aesthetic drive, completion, the blank skin, is viewed as an incomplete canvas. The drive is not merely for a tattoo, but for the total look of a fully decorated body. This is often an expression of the highest degree of the aesthetic motive, viewing the body as a cohesive, curated work of art. The ritualistic/endorphin drive, addiction, the process itself, the buzzing noise, the pain, the endorphin rush, a natural opioid response to pain, and the healing process, can become a form of positive reinforcement or a benign behavioral addiction. This ritual provides a psychological anchor and a tangible sense of being present. Identity saturation, for some, it is the ultimate expression of the self-narrative, where the goal is to saturate the physical form with symbolic meaning, leaving no part of the body unconsidered in the identity-building process. This signifies a profound and unwavering commitment to the self-authorship project. Part 2, Body Image, Self-Esteem, and Reclamation, approximate, 4,000 words. The relationship between a woman, her body, and her self-perception is the most critical psychological domain in the study of female tattooing. Tattoos fundamentally alter the relationship dynamic, moving it from passive acceptance or rejection to active intervention and control. 4. The inked body and self-perception. Tattoos and body dissatisfaction, exploring the contradictory findings in academic literature. The academic literature presents a complex, seemingly contradictory relationship between tattooing and body image. This complexity lies in distinguishing between the individual's pre-tattoo psychological state and the post-tattoo effect. Lower initial self-esteem/body image, Several studies suggest that individuals who choose body modification may initially harbor greater body dissatisfaction or lower global self-esteem than their non-tattooed peers. In this view, the tattoo is a compensatory strategy, an attempt to fix or improve a body that is otherwise rejected or disliked. The drive is to make the body acceptable by making it interesting or artistic. Increased body appreciation and self-worth post-tattooing. However, follow-up studies frequently report a significant increase in body appreciation, self-esteem, and feelings of uniqueness in the weeks and months after receiving a tattoo. This suggests the tattoo is a successful psychological intervention. The mark itself becomes a source of pride, shifting the focus from perceived flaws, e.g., size, shape, to the artistic statement and meaning. The successful modification confirms the woman's agency, which inherently boosts self-worth. The tattoo as an aesthetic tool, using ink to decorate, enhance, or redirect attention on the body. The tattoo acts as a highly effective visual filter for the female body. Decoration and enhancement. Many women seek tattoos purely to enhance their perceived beauty, treating the skin as a surface to be adorned, much like jewelry or makeup, but permanently. Redirection of attention. By placing a compelling piece of art, e.g., a detailed floral sleeve, on a specific area, the woman can strategically redirect the viewer's gaze, and, more importantly, her own gaze, away from areas of body dissatisfaction and toward the area of the art. This is a subtle, conscious form of cognitive reframing of the physical self. Tattoos as a form of body maintenance, integrating the ink into the ideal body schema. The concept of the ideal body schema is the mental blueprint a person holds for what their body should look like. For tattooed women, the ink is often not seen as a deviation from this ideal, but as an essential, integrated component. The body with the tattoo is the body at its best. This shift can be described as active body maintenance, a conscious process of physically shaping the self to match the internal vision of the self. The tattoo is thus absorbed into the definition of my normal body, reducing the psychological distance between the actual self and the ideal self, which is a key mechanism for increasing body satisfaction. 5. Reclaiming the body, trauma, healing, and ownership. For a significant number of women, particularly those with a history of bodily violation, tattooing transcends aesthetic or simple expression to become a powerful therapeutic tool for psychological healing and the restoration of personal sovereignty. The body as a site of trauma, the psychological process of victims of sexual abuse or serious illness, e.g., mastectomy, using tattoos to reclaim ownership of their body. When the body has been a site of trauma, whether from sexual violence, chronic illness, or necessary medical procedures like a mastectomy, the woman can experience a profound sense of disassociation and loss of ownership. The body feels betrayed or alien. Reclamation, the act of intentionally, consciously choosing the location, design, and timing of the tattoo is an exercise in unquestionable agency. The needle's sting is controlled, chosen pain that replaces the uncontrolled pain of trauma. This process is a symbolic reoccupation of the self, asserting, "This body is mine, and I will now choose what is marked upon it." Visible transformation. For mastectomy survivors, a tattoo covering the scar tissue, e.g., a floral pattern or lace design, transforms the area of injury into an area of beauty and deliberate strength. This is an act of psychological integration, taking a piece of the self that was a perpetual reminder of vulnerability and turning it into a monument of resilience. Scar coverage and transformation. The emotional weight of turning a scar into a piece of art, transforming a mark of suffering into a symbol of survival. Scars are permanent records of past physical and emotional injury. Psychologically, they function as visual stigmata, unwanted reminders that can trigger shame, anxiety, or traumatic memories. Symbolic absorption. A tattoo does not erase the scar, but it absorbs its meaning. The scar moves from being a mark of suffering, passive, to being the foundation of an intentional art piece, active. Emotional weight shift. The focus shifts from, "This is where I was hurt," to, "This is how I survived and chose to celebrate that survival." This reframing is a powerful cognitive intervention that assists in the integration of the trauma into the self-narrative as a story of triumph rather than defeat. The ritual of pain. the psychological function of enduring the pain of the needle. The physical pain of tattooing is integral to its psychological power. It is a controlled rite of passage. Grounding and self-soothing, affect regulation. The intense sensory input of the needle can be deeply grounding, particularly for women who experience disassociation or anxiety. Focusing on the immediate, chosen physical sensation pulls the mind out of ruminative thought patterns or flashbacks. Replacing maladaptive behaviors, self-harm reduction. For some, the controlled, clean, and purposeful pain of the tattoo session can function as a harm reduction strategy, replacing less adaptive behaviors like self-cutting. The desire to create beauty and the high cost of the art provide a powerful barrier against destructive urges, replacing impulsive injury with an intentional, artistic ritual. Tattoos as a psychological boundary, marking the skin to delineate the self from the external world. A woman's skin often represents a porous boundary that can feel easily violated by external judgment or unwanted attention. A tattoo works to harden and define this psychological boundary. Delineation. The ink serves as a visual filter, signaling to the external world, I have chosen this boundary. What you see is my statement, not your object. Assertion of control. The permanence of the mark asserts an internal locus of control. The mark is final, and the decision was hers, reinforcing the belief that she, and only she, governs the space of her own body.